So welcome everyone. My name is Michael Brown. I oversee global development for United Hatzalah of Israel. Very pleased to welcome you all today to this important briefing on the situation in Israel and United Hatzalah Volunteer Medics response. We have a few of our operational leaders from Israel joining us to be able to share both what they've seen on the ground over the last 2.5 weeks and also 3 weeks now, and also the organization's operational response to what's been going on and how the organization and the volunteers have been responding. So I'd like to start off by introducing Jeremy and Nicole Kroll, who are organizers, one of the organizers of this event, and wishing them a mazal tov on the bat mitzvah of their daughter yesterday. So we appreciate everything you're doing. And in addition to that, Jeremy, thanks very much for joining.
Thank you, Michael. So Nicole is still entertaining a house full of guests right now, a multi-generational group. So she'll join in process. But on behalf of she and I just want to thank everybody who's tuned in, made the time, both also given support in the past, currently, and even considering in the future. This is an educational opportunity for all of us, and really to learn about the remarkable work. And I just want to also say thank you to the United Hatzalah team, the senior leadership who's made themselves available today to talk about all the progress and all the results and all the dire needs that they have. But it's really the most unique combination of vision and execution. And knowing Mark Gerson as long as I do, I'm not at all surprised. I just didn't get a chance to know Ellie and the rest of the team, but now, see it. It's remarkable what you guys are doing. So thank you to you all. Our co-chair cohort, thank you for your immediate efforts to activate people. I know the princes are going to speak briefly next, but the rest of you, really big shout out for jumping in. I want to give a special thanks to the Ganor family. And Nadi and Natalie are both on. Nadi is a leader at Jeffries. Jeffries has really stepped up in such a visual way and demonstrated leadership and produced so much. Real quick, our daughter Shaya's bat mitzvah was last night. It was such a cathartic opportunity to celebrate our culture, our faith, our community. We really needed it, and it provided a space to do that. Some of you were there last night, including my folks. Hi, Mom and Dad. Shaya had chosen to give direction to all attendees before October 7th to any gifts they were considering to her to go to the Fresh Air Fund. She loves camp. She wanted kids to have the chance to go to camp. Post October 7th, she's now directed everything that she has been given, as well as any potential gifts, to go to United Hatzalah. That's the reality we're living in. And for a child of almost 13 to be able to have to live in this world, but make that call, thank God there's a United Hatzalah to have an outlet for her. So thanks to everybody for joining. Look forward to the session. So Michael, I don't know.
Yeah, Jeremy, thanks for your and Nicole's leadership in organizing this. We really appreciate it. Along with Stephen and Haley, we really appreciate Stephen and Haley Prince, you also stepping up and taking this leadership role in organizing today. And Stephen, Steve, I know you're driving, but I'd love for you to invite you to speak.
Yeah, so thank you for that. So I do want to just thank all the co-hosts, Nicole and Jeremy, obviously, and Mazel Tov on Bat Mitzvah. Erica and Mark Gerson are joining us today. Carrie and Dan Summer, Jenna Arnold and Jeremy Goldberg, as Jeremy just said, Natalie and Nati Ganor, Lauren Rutkin and Rabbi Matthew Gurwitz, and Alexandra and Ari Metayahu. All of us, when Mark put out the word and then we put out the word to our friends, everyone gathered to be happy and willing co-hosts. I really just want to turn it back to Mark and Ellie and the rest of the leadership team at United Hatzalah, because that's why we've all gathered today to hear the really important life-saving work that they're doing, really on the front line of this horrendous tragedy. So let me turn it back to you guys to take it over.
Okay, well, thank you, Steve, and Jeremy and Nikki. What an incredible way, and Shaya, what an incredible way for Shaya to begin her Jewish adulthood. Then by serving the Jewish people in the time of the greatest need in the last 75 years in the most effective way to do so, which is United Hatzalah. So let me open it up with Ellie Beer. Ellie is the founder and leader, the visionary and the executor of United Hatzalah. And Ellie, why don't you just tell us about your experience on October 7th and bring us to where we are today with specific regards. And I know Dov and Lenore will have a lot to say about this too, from October 7th on, about the needs that United Hatzalah has now to face the challenges that are both customary and unique.
Hi, everyone. So first of all, I'll just start with October 7th. Simchat Torah was probably one of my favorite days. I was waiting for this for many months to have a celebration with my family. My son, Israel, who's in the army, somehow was called to stay in the army, not to come home, but they send him up north to the border of Lebanon. He's in the special forces. His unit is in charge of Lebanon. And so we had a nice Simchat Torah. I wasn't the whole family, most of us. And then 6:41, I got a phone call from the United Hatzalah dispatch telling me.
And Ellie, just to back up, it's Shabbat, and you don't normally get calls on Shabbat. And United Hatzalah does 1,900 calls a day in normal circumstances, and these are the same things that we would call 911 for. In Israel, you call 1221, the exact same things: heart attacks, strokes, accidents, choking, bleeding, 1,900 a day. And Ellie and his colleagues of 7,000 volunteers, religious, secular, Arab, Jewish, Muslim, men, women, everybody, they get to the victims within 90 seconds in cities and 3 minutes nationwide. And so October 7th, of course, is Shabbat. And Ellie and all the other volunteers are always willing to do whatever it takes to save a life on Shabbat or any other time, because that is the most sacred value. But you normally don't get phone calls on Shabbat. 1,900 calls a day, every day. But Shabbat, you usually don't hear about them until Shabbat's over.
Right. I usually don't answer if it's not an emergency. I carry my phone on all the time. But I get a call if something really is urgent, like a life-saving or emergency. So I respond. I still respond to calls. For 30-something years, I respond to emergencies. So, I'm just going to say it in brief. I started United Hatzalah when I was 16 years old. And I had 15 of my friends volunteering with me. And we said, it takes an ambulance to arrive to a scene, sometimes 17 to 20 minutes, while people who are next to a scene could arrive there in 2 minutes or less. So why don't we get people notified before ambulances so they could run to stabilize? So when the ambulance arrives, the person not only is alive, but you save them brain damage and other damage that they could have. We started with 15 friends, young. We had a lot of chutzpah because the ambulance did not like the idea at all, the ambulance services in Israel. And we had to use some Israeli innovation called chutzpah and buy police scanners and tap into their emergencies. And that's how we knew something is happening. So it started really as an initiative. We thought it's going to pick up in our neighborhood and that's it. And then it started like fire, running around from city to city. We started with 15 in our neighborhood. Within 2 days, I actually saved a man hit by a car. And I was running there and I got there and I had no medical supplies on me, but he was bleeding badly from his neck. And I stopped his bleeding with my yarmulke.
It's 20 years ago. Now you have medical supplies.
That's 35 years ago. And
now you're getting old.
Then after that, I realized how easy it is to save lives. And it just grew to where it is now, 7,000 volunteers. So this morning, and we have ambucycles, of course, that's the famous motorcycle ambulance that we use in Israel that's changed the organization response time. October 7th, I get a phone call 6:41 saying that a volunteer of ours was just killed. I said, killed? What happened? And we had, unfortunately, a lot of tragedies in the organization. We go out to 750,000 emergencies every year. So sometimes they have terrible accidents and stuff. So he says, the dispatcher says they just shot a volunteer of ours in the party. They had like a festival. And they said, it started actually with another volunteer in Sderot, who was actually on the way to a call at the police station. And it started coming from all directions. It was the party shooting there. It was Sderot. It was Kfar Aza. But one of our volunteers, Chaim Sassi, was responding to a call of a policeman who was shot. And when he got there, he had 20 rifles towards him of terrorists with MK-47s shooting towards him. He pulled out his own gun and he started shooting back. He hit one of the terrorists, got him down, but then he got shot 3 times, one in his face, and he fell off the bike, the ambicycle that he was driving. And I got this call saying multiple terrorist attack is happening. They didn't say a war. And they said, Ellie, we need you in the dispatch. I was, it was close. It was very close, like 5 minutes away. I was there like 7:14. I was there. And the reason I say 7:14, because I didn't think we're dealing with a massive thing. So I was like, it took me time because I had to arrange things. And then when I realized, when I was about to leave to go, they had a siren for missile attacks toward Jerusalem. So everything, I had to run into a bomb shelter. So I really realized something wrong is happening. Also terrorist attacks, also missiles. It was a very nice holiday. And when I got there,
and Ellie, I just had to add, you later discovered later that day that the volunteer who you were told was killed was an Arab volunteer who, well, Hatzalah always has somebody stationed at public events because you never know who's going to have a heat stroke or have a heart attack or get into an accident. So this was an Arab volunteer who was just volunteering at the festival, and he was treating those who were attacked by the terrorists and refused to seek safety for himself, and that was the gentleman Awad who was killed.
So we started getting on the way to the dispatch. I already heard that one of our volunteers that was in that party helping victims, an Arab volunteer, was shot. Then when I got to the dispatch of United Hatzalah 911 center of ours, 1221, hundreds of people were calling us from everywhere. People who had missiles hit their homes, people who were terrorists outside of their homes. Some people were crying. When I came to the dispatch, a woman was crying, saying, I'm going out to the terrorists. They should kill me, but I'm hiding my kids in the shelter underneath the bed. So when you come, you should know I have 2 kids underneath the bed. Save my kids, at least. If I'm not alive, at least my kids should be alive. This is tough. I thought it was, I'm living in a movie. I couldn't imagine this is real. And it started coming from all different cities, from down from Be'eri, Kfar Aza, and many other cities. And I heard it's the same pattern everywhere. And then in some point or another, we said, this is a war. And actually, we were in touch with the army. Some army units didn't even know what was going on. This was like, they didn't have any communications with the front. So we had to send messages to everywhere, to the police. Unfortunately, the Sderot police were taken over by terrorists. The Ofakim big police station was taken over by terrorists. And our volunteers who arrived, who actually live everywhere. Since we live everywhere, we get there much faster. So our volunteers were there. They knew where everything is happening. They went under fire and they picked up patients. They put them in the back of the trunk. They put kids who were injured and bleeding. They just put them in the trunk and drove through fire, ammunition fire, and they saved these people's lives. And we had that morning. We already had 2 volunteers who were killed. We had 2 who were kidnapped. We had many members of family members of volunteers who were kidnapped or killed. But it went on all day. My wife, Kitty, left Jerusalem. She's a paramedic. 7:45, she was already in Sderot. She went with my son-in-laws. They went with separate cars, and because they knew they're going to separate there. And they just started working on the field, saving people. My wife treated 41 people that day, 41 victims. Most of them were survived. Most of the people she treated survived. But not only that, she was also trying to help in any situation. She even saw a car on fire near Sderot, on the entrance to the city of Sderot. She saw a car on fire. She sees the people there are dead. They killed them already. They were murdered. But she stopped and she ran over to the car and she yelled for help from the colleague who was driving with her. And they pulled out the 2 bodies that were in the car because they said they don't want these bodies to burn. They were Jewish people who were murdered. At least they should not burn. And if you know, a lot of the victims were burned. They burned people, they literally did an effort to do everything possible to just damage and harm the people. Anyways, in the end of that day, we had treated over 2,000 people. In that end of the day, we helped so many people. We rescued people with our private vehicles, with ambulances. We send dozens of ambulances inside from everywhere. We send volunteers from ambulances that came from every city. Imagine that could come an hour and a half away. They came and they just rescued people. Most of the ambulances were scared to come in. A lot of ambulance companies were just waiting outside and getting the patients. We brought them outside. A lot of our volunteers use their own private vehicles. We also had
I think, Elliot, to illustrate what happened, the kind of one of the iconic photos of the day was of the United Hatzalah volunteer feeding the baby.
Well, we had so many.
And maybe we could talk about the circumstances that led to that moment, which was that night.
And at night we actually had a crazy situation where a woman hid her kids. I'll tell you this story. I'm going to show you now. I'm just going to show you what Mark just said. This is a picture of, you could see this. This is a picture that I saw at night. This was 14 hours after this war broke out. And you see right here, this is a kid who twins, actually twin babies that we actually, I don't know if you can see this picture, but this is twin babies that we can see we rescued. We rescued these twin babies 14 hours after the parents were murdered. The mother was hiding the kids, two twin 10 months old baby, and they were hiding them for hours and hours. And then after a while, they had to go get food for the babies. The terrorists were waiting outside, and they murdered the parents. They left the kids alive. Late at night, I asked the commanders of the Golani Brigade, why did the terrorists keep these families alive? And they said to me that they used these babies as bait. They used these little babies as bait so they could actually have people come and rescue them, because they heard the babies crying all day. And when anyone got close to the home, they shot them. They killed like 20 people because of these babies. Because every neighbor heard the babies crying, twins babies. They all knew they had twins. In Kfar Aza, they used these little babies for bait. But we rescued them at 8 o'clock in the night. It started at 6. So, 8 or 9, something like that. 13 or 14 hours, they were alone. When we were feeding them, it felt like Holocaust survivors. Literally, that's how it felt like. 2 Holocaust survivors, 10 months old, in Israel now. It's a new type of a Holocaust. Anyway, so that's what we were doing the whole day, the next day, and even till today. Our volunteers are treating people who need help. A lot of people are in tremendous stress. A lot more people were having 15% increase in heart-related injury. 15% increase.
Yeah, so the customary calls are up 15% because people are having stress in addition to all the wartime needs. And I'm just looking at the phase 2 budget, which when Jeremy was talking about what Shai is devoting her bat mitzvah to, this is it. Now we have all kinds of, we spent $250,000 on tourniquets. I mean, we normally have tourniquets, but $250,000. I mean, ambu-cars, 4x4 response vehicles, reinforced response vehicles, mobile command centers, mobile clinic trailers, volunteer base trailers, helicopter transport. All of these are specific war-related needs that we need to put in the hands of United Hatzalah volunteers. So, Lenore, you have been such a hero for United Hatzalah for many years right now. You led the work in Ukraine. You led the work in Turkey. You've been all over the world, especially in Israel, treating all manner of sick, injured, and wounded. And please tell us your perspective as to United Hatzalah's needs now, as well as the kinds of things, equipment, because we're here to buy supplies and equipment, the kinds of supplies and equipment that you and your fellow volunteers need in order to save lives.
Before Lenore goes up, I just want to say who Lenore is. Lenore is a single mother, and she has 2 little daughters. She left her home, she left her family, and she went down south to help out. And her kids didn't know if she's going to come back. She literally left her house. So Lenore, kol hakavod, like they say, we salute you for what you've done. And as we're talking, by the way, they have missiles now from on Kriyat Shmone, on Shlomi, on Mitsuva, on Gesher Aziv, on Lehman. This is all north now. Missiles attacks on the north of Israel.
It's not going to stop these missiles attacks. It's only the beginning, and I think this is the answer for your question, Mark. And thank you, everyone. Hello, everyone. I'm not feeling hero, and it's not like Lenore operational or Lenore doing magics. I'm a volunteer at United Hatzalah, and I received all the drills and preparedness to those kind of mass casualty. But obviously none of us realized that all the kibbutzim at the south, the cities and the roads would become a war zone. Nothing prepared us how to bring 14 trucks, logistic trucks with medical equipment, stretchers, that nothing of that will come back to our logistics center. Once you use the stretcher with a wounded soldier, civilian, girl, man, women's, you cannot clean the blood out of it. You cannot use it again. And when so many kids who managed to escape from the fires inside the houses, from the tires that they burn inside the houses, and just couldn't breathe anymore, and we help them and assist them with the oxygen tanks, then we need to refill those oxygen tanks. And we are spread all over the north and the south. Dovi, Maisel will speak about the operational, but I can tell you that during this nightmare of Shabbat of October 7, all of us treated so many people. And we didn't stop for a second to ask ourselves if we're gonna have more supply, if we're gonna have more medical equipment. We knew that we have your back and your support, that you all believe in us, and you will do anything that's necessary to save the people of Israel. And yes, we are at the front line. We are taking risk. I took the risk. But I took the risk only because I have the expertise and the knowledge that I received from United Hatzalah and from the IDF. And we choose, all of us choose to save life. All of us are volunteers to save life. And we have the training and the equipment. And it's not something that we can just choose to go to deliver a baby at a home. We will go under fire. We will go and still going to terror attacks in Jerusalem and all over. And we will continue to go out there to risk our own life to save other people. Because this is what we need to do, to protect Israel and to remain the Jewish people and the Israeli Arabs safe. You can ask me anything about this nightmare of Shabbat, of Saturday, but I think I answered your question, Mark.
Yeah, so you certainly did. Nati just said, what are the needs, specific needs to come in the long battle ahead? And in fact, in other words, so Lenore said so beautifully that she and her 7,000 colleagues, the Volunteers of United Hatzalah, did what they did and do what they do because they know that we're here as their partners, and their partners are what's our job is to equip them, because without us, they'd be working with Band-Aids, but they don't have to work with Band-Aids. So Michael, I believe you have a short video that's directly responsive to Nadi's question, explaining the specific needs that we have right now. Oh, you got it. There we go. Put on the sound. No sound.
Should there be sound?
Why doesn't one of the people narrate it for us? Ellie or Lenore, do you want to just take us through some of what we saw?
Or Dove?
Sure, no problem. So what we saw basically was a video describing our immediate needs, which are the emergency response vehicles, the defibrillators, the trauma kits, and basically looking forward into this into the future of this war. Nobody knows exactly what's going to be. We're looking at the northern front as we're sitting here in this Zoom call. There were missiles shot on Akko, on Nahariya. On the northern part of Israel, we can see clearly, at least, especially since the ground operations started, we can see an escalation on the northern borders and missiles coming into Kiryat Shmona an hour ago, and then Chatzor in that area. So it's what's clear to us is that this is not an operation that's going to end in a week or two. They're talking publicly about it. This is a matter of months and possibly even many months. Which requires us to be prepared. I mean, we're looking at the response mechanisms from back in the past 23 days of war over here. Obviously, the catastrophe and the atrocities that took place on Shabbat 23 days ago were disastrous. But we can't stop and lick our wounds, if so to speak. We need to be prepared for the next. We have volunteers deployed up north. Throughout Israel, over Shabbat, we had missiles with direct hits on Rishon LeZion, just not far away from my house, about a half a mile away from my house. A direct missile hit right next to a gas station in near Ramle. This is happening every day, and what we're preparing for now is deployment for an extended time, besides the regular day-to-day operation of heart attacks and women giving birth. And all of the 2,000 emergencies, which have grown to 2,500 plus because of the stress levels. We're looking at special needs in the areas. We have almost 500,000 Israelis that are displaced from their homes. We have refugees in our country. Yes, they're in hotels and in schools, but these need to be attended to, and they're attended to by our volunteers. So we're preparing with mobile clinics. We're preparing with the response vehicles, with ambulances, of course, which you saw in the videos, ambulances which transported thousands of victims during the Black Shabbat and the days past. We're looking at a major war. We hope and pray that the outcome won't be of large number of fatalities and injuries. However, we are preparing for the worst, and we need you, as you've been here for us until now. We know that the weeks and months ahead of us are going to be rough. And without the support, we're not going to be able to buy more ambulances. Ambulances take time to put on the street. It may take a month or two. But unfortunately, unlike in the past, even those vehicles and ambulances and mobile response vehicles and mass casualty response vehicles and clinics that take time, weeks at a time to prepare. Unfortunately, we know that they will be put into action because this war simply is not going to be over soon. So I mean, the video is brief, and Rachel.
Yeah,
Jovi,
Dov, I think Michael just told me he can play it with sound. So why don't we
Yeah,
try
Jovi,
to?
I'm just gonna
Sure.
play it now. With
I'll
the
just,
sound.
Michael, before you start, I'll just introduce Rachel Chubeta, who's in the video. Rachel is head of the emergency department by us, Rachel, and her role on the day-to-day is mass casualty incident exercises and emergency preparedness. She has not slept in 3.5 weeks and is leading the operation on the ground with us tremendously. I salute her. She's not on the call with us, but it's a great opportunity.
Hello, my name is Rachel Chubeta, Director of Emergency Paramedic here in United Atala, and this is my medic bag. In the medic bag, you have all kinds of medic equipment that saves lives. Since the 7th of October at 6:30 a.m., we used all our supplies. This is a basic tourniquet. We use thousands of them since the war started. We need a better and more beds, caps, tourniquets, give our volunteers to save more lives. System and MBCAR, one of our emergency vehicles. Since the war started, we took down 150 emergency vehicles down south. We need more vehicles to save lives. What I'm wearing right now is a bulletproof vest. When I was on my way down to the south, I put it on. We have 7,000 volunteers and only 1,500 vests that can make them safe. One of our medics got shot when he wore his bulletproof vest, and that saved his life. This is a defibrillator. When the war started and we were in the south, we still had volunteers going all around Israel and treating heart attacks, and all of them need the defibrillators. Unfortunately, we still don't have a defibrillator for each volunteer. This is one of our brand new ambulances. Since the war started, we sent down to the south and the Gaza border 26 ambulances, and we gave to Israel Defense Forces 5 top-of-the-line ambulances. We need your help to get help.
You know, if it's okay, I'll just jump in for a quick second, Mark, if you don't mind.
Please.
I got back from Israel 4 days ago. I was there for 9 days and had the opportunity to spend some time with Dov and Ellie and the team, not only in the command center in Jerusalem, but a few days later down south. And Dov, I didn't even have a chance to tell you and Ellie this, but when I was down south, we met with a number of the soldiers from Sheshet Tesha from 669, which are the medic response teams that fly the choppers and take care of all of the wounded. What they said, and I also met with people at Soroka Hospital down in the south, their highest patient count in one day prior to last Saturday, or 3 Saturdays ago, I'm sorry, were 96 patients. They got 683 patients that morning. What they said to us was that there's no way they could have done it but for Hatzalah, who was able to, in many, many cases, treat patients quickly and then divert them to lots of the other hospitals in order to keep beds available and the staff available at Soroka and Barzilai hospitals in order to treat the patients that couldn't be transported or couldn't, to give the initial response to those patients, which is what enabled them to save those lives so that the people at the hospitals could actually have the capacity to treat those patients. So, you know, the people at Magen David Adom, the people at 669, all of these people were talking about the critical role that Hatzalah played to enable them to triage and focus on what needed to get done. When I went down to the south to see the mobile operations center that United Hatzalah had built in the south, which was, I think, 8 kilometers from Gaza, if I'm not mistaken, is that right? You know, everything. I mean, everything that could be provided, mobile command center, people monitoring every incoming call, every volunteer nearby, you know, the ambulances, the treatment facilities, all of the equipment so that volunteers could show up, grab what they needed, and get to the field. It was an incredibly remarkable thing to see. I wanted to see it in part because obviously we, along with Mark and lots of others, you know, were able to help support the initial needs. And so I wanted to just kind of see it firsthand, but also to understand the kind of critical needs that are to come in this very long battle and the proximity that they have to be able to treat soldiers and civilians and others on the front. So it was remarkable to see it. I got back again 3 days ago. So for those on the call, I mean, just, you know, I've got hundreds of pictures and videos from United Hatzalah, both in Jerusalem and down south, and just watching it all being put into action as quickly as it has been. And the immediate impact is one of the things that led us to want to co-host this call and to continue to kind of beat the drum on the importance of supporting Hatzalah. So I just wanted to kind of give you some real-time feedback from what we just saw.
Well, Nadi, thank you, and thank you for your in-person witness, and also for shepherding Jeffrey's $2 million gift to United Hatzalah. So,
if I may jump in for a second as well, my name is Mark Selden. I'm actually a friend of Eli's as well. One of the things that we also need to remember, and I was with Eli the week before during some happier times, and as we were speaking about earlier today, we almost forgot that entire week before this, is besides the medical gear that is needed for all of their staff and to go out and treat all the people, is we need to protect their staff. And the protective gear that is needed for all their doctors, their technicians, their drivers is utmost importance. Where they're going, where they're fighting, where they're going, where they're not fighting, but where they're going now, where the fighting is going on, is we need to make sure that they have the gear so they can protect themselves. The helmets.
I mean, so
the
yeah,
bulletproof
Mark, you're
vests.
exactly right. I mean, I'm looking at another urgent medical equipment need list here, and there's protective gear, protective vests and helmets for medics on the front line, $800 each, and we need 2,000 of them.
Right. So as I was sitting at dinner last night and I was looking at my emails and I was ordering my drinks, and instead of ordering a Macallan 18, I said, you know what? Let's get a Macallan 12. Let's order a vest and a helmet. And these are the things you can just do on a daily basis. So as people are sitting around, you're sitting at home and you're looking at the football game and should I put a bet on now? You know what? I'm not going to put that bet in now. I'm going to order a vest and I'm going to order a helmet. I'm not going to order that drink. I'm going to order a vest and a helmet. These are things that we can do on a daily basis to make sure his staff is taken care of. And these are things we should be doing on a daily basis, and just cutting down on the things that we should not, that we take for granted on a daily basis, because these people are, like, as we say, are Baruch Hashem a million times for what Eli and his staff do. They've been doing it for years. They're now doing it and like he said, they don't have time to lick their wounds. Thank God for everything they do.
So exactly. And this is the time. I mean, none of us are going to turn old and say none of us are going to turn old and say my only regret in life is in 2023 I supported United Hatzalah in its time of need. So if we know we're not going to regret something in the future, we should do it in the present. And I can't think of a better opportunity to do something meaningful in the present that we're going to be proud of in the future, and certainly will never regret, than giving as much as we can and then some to United Hatzalah. Because as Lenore and Dov and Ellie said, and more than they said, they do, they can only save the lives that Nadi described them saving if they're supplied and equipped. And the list of supplies and equipment is far longer than anything I've ever seen. Lots of things there I didn't even know existed, but the incredible operations team that Dov runs and Lenore runs knows exactly what they need. They know exactly where to buy it. They know exactly how to get the best price for it. It's an extraordinarily efficient operation, and they just need our support to buy them these supplies and equipment.
Right. Perfectly
Ellie, you're
said.
on mute.
Perfectly said. And Eli, always great to speak to you twice in the past hour.
Ellie, for some reason, we still don't hear you. No.
We
All right,
can't
he's
hear
gonna
you.
call back in. I'll say something too. Hi, I'm Erica Gerson. I'm married to Mark, and we've been fundraising nonstop since this began. And I want to share a couple of things. One is that while we have a list of what we need, and I know for some people it's very helpful to think about concrete things, like for example, for $225,000 is each one of the ICU ambulances that we need, the 5 of that we just handed over to the IDF to get replaced. That's concrete. But this is also a time to just give, because we trust United Hatzalah to figure out what's next. I was talking to someone a few days ago who was telling me about a $600,000 shipment that was coming from overseas. And I said, I'm surprised to hear that, because usually we're buying, most of the stuff is being bought within Israel. And he said, these are kinds of wound closures that we would never even think of in normal times for United Hatzalah to have. But we're in a different moment right now. So like full abdomen wound closures and things like that. So not everything is on these lists. They've been working on the fly. The first day when Ellie figured out what was happening and we said, yes, empty all the warehouses and just send it south. He said, can I have authorization? We said, great, $10 million. You do it. We'll worry about the fundraising. This next round, which is already 2 weeks old, is I think close to 50 million or 60 million. The needs continue to emerge. And I think Ellie has proven in the 18-year track record that he knows what's needed. I don't think we could have imagined that, hey, we can't get the ambulances in time. So now we're using, I think, Land Cruisers or Land Rovers. I don't know the difference, but that they're long enough to lay a patient in. So, I have total faith in the organization to do what's right with every single dollar. And something that really strikes me, for any of you who've already had the pleasure and the privilege of going into the headquarters, and if you haven't on your next trip to Israel, be sure to go to the headquarters in Jerusalem. The phone is answered. There's a visual up on the wall. Within 3 seconds, the phone is answered. And in normal circumstances, in a place like Jerusalem, the person is at your door helping your family with their emergency in 90 seconds. And the reason that's possible is because our volunteers immediately jump and go to save a life. And they don't stop and think, can I make this work? Maybe if I change this one thing in my life, maybe if I figure that out. No, they just go. And so for us as donors, we shouldn't have to think and ponder and talk about it this week and maybe decide, because our volunteers just get up and go and give everything, and literally are putting their lives at risk when they go for a rocket, when they go into fire, no matter what. And I think it's such a privilege that all we have to do is open our purses and truly, for most of us, not even really feel any pain. So I think this is just a unique moment where we have to respond with the same selflessness that our 7,000 volunteers do every day.
Thank you, Erica. I just want to add something because I had a problem with my phone, my computer and everything. But I would just want to add, Mark said something before about people want to give in the moment, because otherwise, my father told me a story when he was a kid. He was living through the Holocaust, but in New York. My father was raising money to save Jewish people in Europe then. And so many Jews were not giving then. They didn't know what was happening. They really didn't know the story, the real story. And the Jews really didn't have enough influence to change the war, but they didn't know what exactly was happening. And that was a big shame. Later on, after the Holocaust, so many Jews said, we wish we knew, we wish we could have given more or give at all. So at least now we have, everything is open to the world. You hear first testimonials of what's going on down south. We don't know what's going to be up north. We don't know what's going to be inside Israel. We want to prepare. I just went ahead this week and I ordered equipment that we never had before, ultrasounds, portable ultrasounds, to have paramedics and EMTs and doctors that they could check internal bleeding of shooting inside a chest or a stomach of someone, so we can know how to treat them. Not only that, also send the images immediately to the emergency room in the hospital so they could actually prepare an emergency surgery on people who are injured. Sometimes you don't know a bullet could go into someone's arm and end up in someone's stomach, and you don't even know about it. It looks like, oh, he got a bullet in his arm. No, it actually diverted inside the body and went somewhere else into heart. And people have internal bleeding and they die. We bought now 100 portable ultrasounds. That's an order that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that was never in our budget. But this is one item that I just added. So we are coming up with new techniques, more ideas, more vehicles that we never had before. Bulletproof vehicles. Who would have thought United Hatzalah need bulletproof vehicles? Yes, we put our life in danger. We want to make sure not only our lives are safe when we go in, but the people we transport don't die from a shooting inside the car. This might take a few months. I've been meeting every politician, the president of the United States, the people who are running for presidency in the Republican Party, every single one. I was meeting them, telling them what we have. Everyone knows this is a long operation. This could take sometime, maybe even 6 months or a year. We want your help now so we could prepare properly. And anyone who could do anything, and even if you could give and get your friends to give, get your friends to get together, like the same Zoom call now. We have this Zoom call is incredible. But if you want to do your own private Zoom call with your family, with your friends, we'll go on the call, because it's easier for us to go on a call than to travel now, because it's so hard for us. And I'll end with that. I'll just say, listen, my family is affected very much from this. My son Israel, whoever met my son knows he's a gem of a gem of a gem. He's an incredible kid. He's 20 years old now. He's my only son out of 5 kids, 4 daughters and a son, but he's serving now in the special forces in the Israeli army. And he's in Gaza now. He's literally in Gaza. And he's fighting, and I'm so proud of him. I'm so proud of every single Israeli who is giving everything possible for protecting this country. We're not only protecting Israel for our sake. I'm an American. I can live in Boca Raton if I want. I'm protecting it for the Jewish people. I want to live in Israel. I want you to come visit once in a while. I want you to have a homeland. And the only way to do that is to fight back. And in order to fight back, we need the people's support.
If I could say just one last thing that, I've been following Hatzalah for several years since Mark and others kind of highlighted it for me. But one of the things that I learned in my recent trip, which I had never really thought of before, was I probably spoke to, 12 or 13 ultra religious Jews, both in Jerusalem and in the South. And as you all know, many of them don't serve in the military. And what I actually heard from a lot of them in different conversations, and it all kind of aligned, was that they're all volunteers for United Hatzalah, including, by the way, on Saturdays, where I guess it's a mitzvah to respond to an emergency, even if you're studying Torah and you're not supposed to be on your device. They all have a specific device for United Hatzalah. It's not their phone. And that they all look at this as a way to give back, because they can't necessarily be in the military, involved in the military, and that they leave their places of worship, they leave their places of work, they leave their yeshivas, they leave whatever for these emergencies, and they look at it as a critical part of what they do to try to give back, and they're just unbelievably committed to being these volunteers for United Hatzalah. So it's interesting to also see the impact that it has on the religious community and the pulling together of the religious community with the more secular community and the Arabs, and they're working together, and the Christians, to save lives, was something that I had never really paid attention to before. It was interesting to hear it in every one of those conversations. So just an interesting kind of subtext from a cultural standpoint that I thought y'all might find relevant.
Yeah, I would say you're exactly right, and also thank God that the team, as usual, got it right. And several years ago, recruited a women's division with now 2,000 women volunteers. And the idea was that if there's a woman giving birth, she would prefer to have a woman volunteer. So now we have 2,000 women volunteers. Thank God, because right now so many of the men have been called. Some of the men volunteers have been called up for service in the IDF, and the work they would have usually done has been just replaced seamlessly by these 2,000 women volunteers. So,
if you allow me, I have a
yeah,
short 1-minute video of a summary of the last few weeks, if I could show it. I just want to show this. Wait a second, sorry.
When Hamas's attack upended thousands of lives, it was Sabbath. It was also an important Jewish religious holiday, Simchas Torah. Israel's emergency medical teams had to spring into action.
I am devastated. In my life, I never saw anything like this. What we had in Israel, a massacre. I saw the horrors of children murdered, old ladies, old men, women, in front of their kids. These are horror stories that I heard from Europe, 1940s. We're a small organization with a huge impact. 7,000 volunteers who are actually putting their life in danger. I always preach for putting people, the Jews together, Israel together. I always said United Hatzalah, examples what Israel should be. This is us before Shabbat, a week after the terrorist attack that started a war that killed over 1,500 Jews, murdered them in the worst conditions. We saw a lot of hard things that we never saw before. Look at the gas tank. They had air. This is an RPG. It was used to kill people who were guarding the place, and then terrorists came in here and started killing, murdering Jews. Many of them were young kids, babies. This is the worst disaster, humanitarian disaster that happened in Israel.
Sorry about the quality.
Mark,
yeah.
you're
So
on
let's turn it over to Jeremy Kroll, who was Jeremy and Nikki were really the inspirations for this group. So with thanks to Jeremy and Nikki and the Princes and Jenna and Jeremy and the other co-hosts, thank you. And Jeremy, let's turn it over to you. And I think you have an announcement to make.
Well, I just want to acknowledge Gabe Aram, who is on the Zoom. And I'll let him speak for himself and the Hatzalah organization to sort of reinforce what he was able to do the night of the attacks, but to acknowledge not just that night and what he was able to do to generate incredible results for the organization, but he spent his whole lifetime in philanthropy, building and supporting and securing the state of Israel and building bridges across religions and countries and borders and oceans. But you got to hear this story. And so a thanks to Gabe. Gabe, 1 minute or less, or maybe a minute and 18 seconds. Tell the story, and you're awesome. We love you. Thank you for everything.
Thank you for the opportunity. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
I was one of the first ones to get a call when all this started. And my first thought was that United Hatzalah would be the very first responders, as you heard from Ellie. And so the first thing that I was thinking of, what do they need now first? And of course, they need vehicles, equipment, defibrillators, the usual thing. And I've had the privilege of working with Ellie and the organization for quite a while, as did my son Daniel. And so I started calling friends because I wanted to do something. I must say that on the personal calls, I would say 10 out of 10 of the first people that I reached out to immediately responded and said, you know, where do I send contributions and so on. And then I started thinking, well, perhaps I can somehow activate my corporate contacts. And I, you know, when I don't usually ask for anything for myself, but when it comes to something like United Hatzalah, I know no shame. So I picked up the phone and I called Stuttgart, Germany, and I called the global chairman of the board of Mercedes-Benz, who's actually not German, he's Swedish. His name is Ola Kolenius, and he's a very close personal friend. And I said, Ola, this is what this organization is doing. What can you do? Within maybe 5 hours, Ola called me back and he said, well, I still have to go to my board, but within my authority, I'd like to make a contribution. Where do I send it? I gave him the details, and within minutes, he transferred 1 million euros from Mercedes-Benz. And Ellie has been telling me that they're buying ambulances with this money immediately. So that was the first one. And I was very happy to hear about Jeffries and Company. I had this friend, Dan Furstenberg, who is with Jeffries and Company, and he reached out to me and said, who should we give to? What should we do? We have a matching program. What can we do? And first thing I said, it was United Hatzalah, and as you heard before, thankfully people responded beautifully, and the results came in. I reached out to Brian Moynihan, who is the global CEO of Bank of America, and they are starting a program, a matching program, because I explained to them that this conflict will likely go on for a long time. And, this morning I got one call that somebody contributed $25,000. So whatever we can do on the corporate side, we're trying our best. But somebody asked me, Gabe, why are you doing this? And on May 29, 1944, 186 members of my family were killed in Auschwitz. They were gassed and burned. And when I saw the first burned baby's picture, I had to do something. So thank you for the opportunity. Anybody who needs anything where I can help, introductions, door openers, Jeremy has my phone number, Ellie has my phone number. I'm more than happy to contribute. And again, thank you. I'm Yisrael Chai.
Gabe, I just want to say, Gabi, we know each other for many, many years, and you personally, you and Daniel and your family support United Hatzalah for years. I never saw you so heartbroken. You call me, we talk every day. And when you called me about Mercedes, it was a very surreal thing to get. We're having a little Holocaust going in Israel, really. It's like a little tiny Holocaust. But who's the first ones to help? Germany, which is unbelievable. And you got Mercedes to go help. And that's you because of your connections. And you turn to other people. And it's really simple. You just call a few people. Like we were talking before, we need a connection to Chase Bank. Chase Bank, United Hatzalah Bank in Chase Bank. They make a lot of money from a lot of people here on this call probably have accounts there. If Mercedes in Germany could give €1 million, Chase Bank could give a little money. I don't know how
Well,
much.
so along those lines, there've been Jeremy just emailed me about Cravath is now doing a matching donation. UBS, if anyone here is a private client of UBS, they will add 20% to whatever you give to United Hatzalah. So you got to be a private client of UBS. Other corporations ranging from Salesforce to Blackstone to the White Sox and the Bulls and the Vikings and the Dolphins and the Yankees and the Hornets, on and on. And Steph Curry's venture fund, the corporate institutional support, and now Mercedes has been.
And really, the first ones who came up, like big corporate bank, was Jeffries, who really, Nati, you were amazing what you guys did. You're unbelievable. And not only you gave a big support,
you
actually came to Israel to see what the money is doing, and kol hakavod for that. So everyone here on this call, this call is serious. This is a serious call. You know, like this is guys who everyone here has their own capacity, but also you have friends. Turn to your friends. They have companies. Who knows? Dunkin' Donuts. I don't know. Any company you know you're involved with. We need to get every American corporation, not only American, but every American corporation should support Israel now, because this is not only Israel's fight. This is the free world's fight now. We need to win. We need to be strong. We can't have people dying in our streets. And everyone has someone they know in Israel, a family member or something. So please help us get to other people, because Mark Gerson is using all his contacts. Gabe is using all his contacts. And a lot of people here are trying their best to use their contacts. I'm sure some of you know people who could help us. And we need to raise millions and more dollars. We have a budget of $50 million we have to get right away. And then, you know, we should continue for the phase 3, which is who knows how long this will take.
Yeah, all right. So absolutely. So I'll just unless Jeremy has anything more, I'll just say my last piece here, which is anyone just email me, mark@markgerson.com, as Ellie said, if you want to set up a Zoom, if you from that to you want payment information, we can get anything. There's plenty of material that illustrates from institutional support to the CNN segment with Jake Tapper, with Ellie, to what Hatzalah is doing on the ground. There's plenty of support for anybody who wants to socialize it with their friends, whether just one-on-one or in a larger group, which Dov, Lenore, and Ellie are always available to do. And you know, this is our moment to be with these heroes at United Hatzalah who are saving and rescuing so many people in this time of most vulnerable and greatest need. So, Jeremy, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mark, and you and I married up, obviously. Erica, Mark, we love you guys. Nikki just came in. She's off camera. As you know, we've got a house full of guests. But again, a huge thank you to the Hatzalah team, the leadership, inspiring us all. I think some powerful points were made on this Zoom. Hopefully there's a lot of food for thought and inspiration, not just from what you heard about the results in the field and the sheer sacrifice, physical and mental, but we can all do something, no matter how small or large, and everything in between. And we are now real time seeing that this is not over, and we're investing in the future of our people, irrespective of religion and ethnicity. You know, big picture, this organization is so inclusive. It is all about saving lives and all about treating people. So use your corporate contacts, use leverage wherever you can. You may have a little Jewish guilt, not about this. And like my grandma Flo said, if you don't ask, you don't get. So hats off to everybody here. Thank you for your time, and look forward to continuing to work together to support Hatzalah.
Okay, thank you.
I'm putting right now on the chat everyone's number, email, sorry. So you guys have it. And you have Michael. It's Michael Brown is also Michael@IsraelRescue.org.
So just show one more thing before you leave. Lynn makes a very important point here. Lynn just put in the please be sure that the mental health of the volunteers is supported. Lynn, several years ago, United Hatzalah launched the world's first psychotrauma unit for first response. And the psychotrauma unit has been more active than ever. But this is something United Hatzalah has been doing now for 2 or 3 years when we first heard about it. And so we have a whole core of volunteers who are also trained psychologists to deal specifically with first responder trauma. And Lynn, to your point, everyone is all the volunteers. I mean, your instinct, your intuition is precisely right. They're all traumatized. Ellie's traumatized, and there's nothing we can do about that except provide the support from the psychotrauma unit to the volunteers who are traumatized and will continue to be as they continue to do their life-saving work. But that's a very important core of volunteers, and they're more active than ever, as are all the other volunteers.
And I see Carrie and Dan Summers, who are members of our board, are so helpful all year round. This is like the extra effort you guys are doing are incredible. So I want to say thank you. I love you guys, and please come visit us in Israel. I'll pick you up from the airport if you come.
Everyone, thank you so much for coming and for everyone's support. And God bless the volunteers of United Hatzalah.
Thanks,
everybody.
Take care. Bye bye. Shalom. Thank you. Thank you, Jeremy.
Our pleasure.